The situation on the Eastern Front has taken a severe turn for Ukrainian forces, with President Volodymyr Zelensky himself confirming that Russian units have successfully established a foothold in the strategically vital city of Pokrovsk. This development represents one of the most significant territorial setbacks for Ukraine in recent months. In a somber address, President Zelensky described the condition for his troops as extremely difficult, as Ukrainian defenses are stretched thin in their efforts to repel the continuous Russian advances. The battle for Pokrovsk highlights the escalating intensity of the conflict in the east and underscores the urgency behind Ukraine's repeated appeals for greater international military support. The tactical situation in the city is further complicated by the pervasive presence of Russian drones, which have effectively severed key supply lines, making the reinforcement of positions and the evacuation of wounded soldiers nearly impossible. In response to this deteriorating battlefield realities, President Zelensky has announced a major strategic shift in Ukraine's military doctrine, expanding the nation's war horizon far beyond its own borders. He revealed ambitious plans to significantly widen the scope and frequency of long-range strikes deep inside Russian territory. The primary target of this new campaign are to be Russia's oil refineries, which are correctly identified as the economic lifeblood of Moscow's war machine. This offensive posture is being formalized through the signing of 3-year contracts with weapons manufacturers, signaling that deep strike operations are now considered a central and enduring component of Ukraine's national defense strategy. President Zelensky emphasized that developing this long-range military capacity will remain a key priority for the country's defense posture, both during the current conflict and in the post-war era. This escalation has not gone unnoticed in Moscow, where President Putin issued a stern warning that such attack on Russian infrastructure, combined with Western sanctions, could ultimately boomerang and have severe consequences for the West itself. The conflict has now decisively entered a new phase, forming into a global oil war where the economic stakes are becoming increasingly personal and perilous for all involved. As the military situation on the ground grows more precarious, with reports from Moscow suggesting the encirclement of approximately 10,000 Ukrainian troops, a surprising diplomatic signal has emerged from Kyiv. President Zelensky shocked many allies by indicating a new readiness to engage in peace talks, with one significant condition: the negotiations could take place anywhere but Russia or Belarus. The statement, seemingly at odds with the newly announced military strategy of deep strikes, came just hours after Moscow confirmed a successful test of its nuclear-powered Burevestnik missile. Adding another layer of complexity, Russian officials reportedly briefed President Donald Trump's teams directly on the missile test, a move clearly intended to send a message of strategic strength to Washington. The re-emergence of the Burevestnik, a weapon once dubbed the Flying Chernobyl due to its nuclear propulsion systems, in international headlines, combined with the tightening of U.S. sanctions, has made the political front of the war more intricate than ever. The confluence of extreme military pressure on Ukrainian forces, the overt display of Russia's most formidable strategic weapons, and the tentative offer of dialogues from Kyiv has created a deeply ambiguous and volatile diplomatic landscape. Observers are left to question the true nature of this moment, whether it marks the beginning of a genuine path toward diplomacy and a negotiated settlement, or if it is merely a desperate tactical pause by a nation under siege, designed to buy time before the next inevitable and potentially more devastating escalation of the conflict. The approach of another harsh winter has exposed and deepened a significant strategic rift among Western allies regarding the best path forward for supporting Ukraine. On one side, key European powers within NATO, particularly Germany, are actively plotting a massive new support initiative for Ukraine. However, the stated objective of this push is not explicitly to facilitate peace, but rather to bolster Ukraine's position of power. While U.S. President Donald Trump has been vocal in his push for diplomatic resolutions and peace talks, influential figures in the European Union are doubling down on a military-first strategy. Leaders such as Estonia's Kaja Kallas and the Netherlands' Mark Rutte are spearheading efforts in Brussels to prepare extensive package of weapons and critical energy aid designed to sustain Kyiv's resistance through the punishing cold month. Moscow has publicly stated that it remains ready to engage in talks, but this offer is being met with skepticism and a push for further escalation in Brussels. The prevailing sentiment, as articulated by proponents of a hardline stance, is that only a position of undeniable strength on the battlefield can bring about a lasting and favorable peace for Ukraine. German Foreign Minister Johann Waffel has vowed to mobilize all forces to this end. However, this strategy is not without its critic, who warned that NATO's winter plans could dangerously backfire. They argued that by prioritizing military reinforcement over immediate diplomatic engagement, the EU could inadvertently deepen and prolong the war, while simultaneously freezing up President Trump's peace initiative before it has a chance to gain traction, thereby closing a potential window for a negotiated end to the conflict. Further complicating the European political landscape are the divergent and often contradictory actions of individual member states. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban has embarked on a determined diplomatic mission to promote what he calls an anti-war initiatives. He recently met with Pope Leo XIV at the Vatican, seeking the Holy See's support for a peaceful resolution. Orban has been a vocal critic of the EU's mainstream approach, accusing pro-war elites in Brussels of actively sabotaging any chances for peace. His stance has earned praise from Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, who lauded Hungary as the only sane voice in Europe. However, Orban's diplomatic standing was weakened by the indefinite postponement of a planned peace meeting between President Trump and President Putin in Budapest. Despite this setback, Orban continues to promote a vision of a network of peace composed of Hungary, the Vatican, and the United States under President Trump. He has also vowed to block Ukraine's potential EU membership and reaffirmed that Budapest will continue importing Russian gas to protect its economy, calling Europe's refusal to negotiate directly with Russia's a catastrophic mistake. Orban's meeting with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni in Rome highlights the deep ideological rift even within Europe's right-wing camp, as Meloni reaffirmed Italy's commitment to NATO while Orban continued to defend Moscow. In a separate and highly alarming development, Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service, SVR, has accused French President Emmanuel Macron secretly preparing to deploy up to 2,000 French troops to Ukraine, an act the SVR labeled a Napoleonic fantasy. Moscow claims that French Foreign Legion units are already positioned in Poland, ready for deployment. This accusation followed earlier remarks by Macron that 26 countries were considering sending reassurance forces under a ceasefire agreement. Russia's response has been swift and unambiguous, with Foreign Minister Lavrov warning that any European military personnel in Ukraine would be considered occupation forces and legitimate targets, marking a sharp and dangerous escalation in tensions between Russia and France. If you have made it this far, congratulations, you have unlocked the truth. I want to ask you a quick question though. Given the severe pressure on the front lines at Pokrovsk, is Ukraine's new dual strategy of launching deep strikes inside Russian territory while simultaneously opening the door for peace talks the correct approach to secure its future? Or does it risk escalating the conflict with a nuclear power without guaranteeing a better outcome? And why? Join the debate. I want to hear your insightful opinion on where this is all heading in our community. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Like the video, hit the notification bell, and most importantly, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one.